Did you know that coffee was once considered like Satan's brew? I mean, seriously, Satan's brew.
Huh.
Wild, right?
Yeah.
Today, we're going on a deep dive into this like super interesting history of coffee.
Okay.
How did it go from like totally forbidden to something everyone loves?
Exactly. Yeah.
And get this, a huge part of that story involves the Pope.
It really is fascinating how something we just kind of take for granted today
Uh-huh.
was once, like you said, viewed with so much suspicion.
Yeah, so to really kick things off,
Okay.
let's go way back in time, like to around 850 AD.
Okay.
And there's this almost like legend
Right.
about this Ethiopian goat herder named Kaldi.
Right.
And he noticed something really weird with his goats.
Oh.
Like they were just going crazy after eating berries from a specific tree.
Oh, so those berries, that's where it all starts.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So Kaldi's like, what's going on here?
All right.
And he decides to, try these berries himself.
Makes sense.
And let's just say he got a little boost of energy too, right?
I can imagine.
And then the story gets even more interesting
Okay.
because Kaldi, he takes these, energizing berries
Yeah.
to a nearby Islamic monastery.
Oh, okay. So we're going from goats to monks now.
Exactly. Monks and caffeine.
That's a combination I'd like to hear more about.
What could possibly go wrong?
Right. Right.
Well, as it turns out,
Yeah.
they actually started experimenting with like the very first coffee brews.
Wow. So these monks, they were like the original baristas.
Pretty much.
Ah.
And, from there, coffee just explodes in popularity in the Middle East.
I can see why.
It becomes like a total staple in homes, social gatherings, everywhere.
Really interesting.
But even then, it wasn't all smooth sailing for coffee, was it?
Not really. Even in the Middle East where it was so popular,
Right.
there are definitely people who weren't so happy about it.
Really? Like, what was their problem with coffee?
Well, some saw it as this kind of potential vice.
A vice.
Yeah, they kind of grouped it in with stuff like alcohol or tobacco.
Oh, so they thought it was bad for you.
Not necessarily bad, but they associated it with, overstimulation and maybe some disruptive behavior.
Oh, I get it. Too much energy, too much excitement.
Right, exactly.
So things got even trickier when coffee finally makes its way over to Europe.
Oh, yeah. Things definitely got more complicated there.
It wasn't exactly a warm welcome.
Not at all.
So why do you think coffee got such a bad rap in Europe?
Well, you have to remember the historical context.
Okay.
This was a time of a lot of religious tension, lots of prejudice.
Yeah, it wasn't exactly a peaceful time, was it?
Right. And coffee, because of its origins in the Islamic world,
Right.
it just immediately triggered all this suspicion.
Wow. So basically guilt by association.
Pretty much. And some people even started calling it Satan's drink.
Whoa, Satan's drink. That's pretty harsh.
Yeah, they associated it with the enemy,
Talk about a PR nightmare.
Right.
Okay, so how in the world did coffee overcome this, like, devilish image?
Well, this is where Pope Clement VIII comes in.
Oh, yeah, the Pope.
Yeah.
So he was a coffee drinker.
He wasn't at first. Actually, he was facing all this pressure from his own court
Yeah.
to condemn coffee.
Really? Like to officially ban it?
Yeah, for all Catholics?
Wow, that's a big deal.
It was a huge dilemma for him.
So did he cave to the pressure?
He did something totally unexpected.
Really? What did he do?
He decided to try it.
He tried the coffee.
He did, before he made any judgments.
Wow, I love that. A true leader.
Right.
He had to gather all the facts,
Absolutely.
even if it involved a little caffeine jolt.
Exactly. So what did the Pope think after his first sip?
Yeah, what was his verdict?
Well, the story goes he absolutely loved it.
No way. He liked it.
He did. And he basically said he refused to let infidels have exclusive rights to such, quote, earthly pleasures.
Wait, so the Pope basically saved coffee
In a way, you could say that.
from damnation, right?
Yeah. And this papal seal of approval, it was a total game changer.
Wow, just like that.
It removed the stigma for Catholics.
Yeah.
And it really opened the door for coffee's rise across Europe.
Okay, so the Pope likes his coffee.
He did.
That's great and all,
Right.
but how did this one event lead to coffee becoming, so integral to European life?
Right. That's a great question.
It wasn't just the Pope's taste buds, was it?
You're right. It was more than just that. Think about it. This new drink
Right.
arrives exotic.
Yeah.
It's stimulating, gives you a boost,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden it's approved by
Yeah.
the highest authority in the land.
Oh, yeah, the Pope.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
Oh,
It's like the ultimate influencer marketing campaign.
exactly. And this was happening at the same time as another really interesting development.
What's that?
The rise of coffee houses all across Europe.
Coffee houses, huh?
Yeah, they were popping up everywhere.
And these weren't just like your average cafes, right?
No, they were much more than that. They were
Right.
social hubs.
Social hubs. Right.
Places where people from all walks of life
Right.
just gather, discuss, debate, share ideas.
Wow, it sounds pretty lively.
They were.
So coffee houses were basically the social media of like the 17th century.
It's a good comparison.
Yeah.
They were absolutely vital for exchanging information and ideas.
Wow, that's fascinating. So coffee wasn't just a drink, it was fueling like intellectual discourse and social interaction.
Right.
Really interesting to think about how those coffee houses might have even like contributed to the rise of the Enlightenment.
Yeah.
I mean, that whole period of, intellectual and cultural explosion in Europe.
Absolutely.
You think coffee played a part in that?
Well, think about it. Those coffee houses became hotbeds
Okay.
for philosophical discussions, scientific breakthroughs,
Wow.
even revolutionary plotting sometimes.
No way.
Yeah, picture it.
Good.
Groups of thinkers, all energized by their coffee,
Uh-huh.
challenging the status quo, debating new ideas.
I love it. And of course, I can't forget the story about Voltaire.
Oh, yes, Voltaire.
The famous philosopher
Right.
supposedly drank up to 50 cups of coffee a day.
I've heard that story too.
Maybe that's why he was so prolific.
Maybe. Although 50 cups is a bit extreme.
Yeah, probably not the best for your health.
Definitely not recommending that.
But it does show how important coffee became
Yeah.
to like the intellectual and creative process.
It really does. Think about it.
Okay.
Before coffee became popular,
Well,
the main social drink in Europe
Yeah.
was alcohol.
oh, that's true.
So coffee offered this, stimulating alternative
Okay.
for clearer thinking and more focused discussions.
So you're saying coffee was basically brain fuel for the Enlightenment.
You could definitely say that.
Wow, that's amazing.
It fueled a real shift.
Right.
Instead of gathering in taverns and getting, tipsy, people were meeting in coffee houses,
Okay.
staying sharp, engaged in these lively intellectual conversations.
Right.
So this new culture
Yeah.
of sober, stimulating conversation.
Yeah, it must have had a huge impact
I would think so.
on the development of new ideas and the spread of knowledge.
It's really incredible to think how, a simple drink
It is.
could have such a huge impact on society, right?
It really is.
I mean, it went from
Yeah.
being demonized as Satan's brew
exactly.
to becoming the fuel for a period of unprecedented intellectual growth. It's pretty remarkable.
And it really makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Uh-huh.
How something we take for granted today,
Hmm.
like grabbing a latte on the way to work,
Right.
played such a huge role in shaping the course of history.
Yeah. And it also shows just how connected things are, right?
It does.
Like how a simple bean cultivated in one corner of the world
Yeah.
can spark cultural transformations across entire continents.
Pretty amazing.
It really makes you appreciate that little cup of coffee a lot more, doesn't it?
It does.
But I have to ask,
Yeah.
did everyone embrace coffee with open arms?
That's a good question. Or were there still people who,
Yeah.
clung to the idea that coffee was dangerous or even subversive?
You're right to ask that because not everyone was immediately on board.
Really?
Definitely pockets of resistance.
Even during the Enlightenment?
Even then, yeah, some people were still a bit wary.
Even as coffee was fueling all these philosophical debates and stuff.
Exactly.
Wow, so what were they so worried about?
Well, some of those old fears, they just kind of stuck around.
Like what kind of fears?
The idea that coffee was, too stimulating,
Oh,
that it would disrupt social norms, even lead to radical thinking.
Radical thinking.
Yeah, or even, dare I say it, revolution.
Whoa, revolution.
Yeah.
So coffee was like a gateway to rebellion.
Well, not exactly, but you can see how some people might have made that connection.
Yeah, okay, I can see that. So it sounds like
Yeah.
coffee's journey was kind of reflecting a bigger shift happening in society. I mean, embracing coffee went hand in hand with, embracing new ideas, new ways of thinking,
Absolutely.
even new forms of social and political organization.
Exactly. You hit the nail on the head.
So it was more than just a drink. It was like a symbol
Olay, yes.
of progress and change.
And this tension, this
Yeah.
push and pull between tradition and innovation,
Right.
that's something that keeps coming up
Mm-hmm.
throughout history.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And even in our own lives today.
It's like that saying, right?
Yeah.
For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction.
Exactly.
So in this case, coffee's rise,
Yeah.
It sparked excitement, but also anxiety,
Yeah, you could say that.
driving both progress
Right.
and pushback.
A great way to put it.
And it just goes to show,
Yeah.
even things that seem really simple, like our daily rituals,
Oh,
they can have
yeah.
these really complex
Right.
and often unexpected histories.
Totally agree. It really does make you think.
Yeah. And you know what? Next time I'm having my coffee,
Uh-huh.
I'm going to think about, it's a journey
That's a long one.
from those like
Yeah.
crazy goats in Ethiopia
Right.
all the way to the halls of the Vatican.
To the coffeehouses of
Yeah.
the Enlightenment.
It's pretty amazing.
It is.
It's like a reminder that even the most ordinary things in our lives
Right.
can have these,
Yeah.
really fascinating stories
Totally.
just waiting to be uncovered.
And who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe those stories can,
Uh-huh.
give us a new perspective
Okay.
on the world.
Yeah, I like that.
Makes you think a little differently.
It does. It really does.